If you don't have revenue in your business, you don't have a business. And I said to Lord Sugar at the time, I've been the best candidate. I've never been taken to the boardroom, in the final three of the boardroom, ever. And the reason for that is because I work hard, I get the job done, I'm brilliant, I won more tasks than anyone else. And he took that and he said,
Lee, it's fantastic to have you on the show. You famously won The Apprentice back in 2008. I mean, out of all the people I've met, I think you know more about sales than just about everyone added up together. I mean, and that's probably what Alan saw on you back in the show, and then you've started a lot of businesses since then, one of them being Elite Retreat. I'd love to hear more about what you've got to say and hear your story.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me, Richard. I mean, you and I met 18 years ago, just after I won The Apprentice, and I know for your viewers and listeners that seems a long time ago, but we was actually on the speaking circuit together. And I remember sitting next to you and looking at you and thinking, wow, this guy, powerful guy, really amazing guy, which you are and what you'd achieved. So to look up to somebody like that. And you gave me a piece of advice that day, actually. I'd never forget. I don't know if you remember this. You actually said to me, when you have an opportunity to have money or to buy money cheap or money is available cheap, take it, because you never know when the next opportunity comes. And I think that really stuck with me as an entrepreneur, because at the time I was kind of, like you just said, I just won The Apprentice, so I got the best of both worlds, because I got a job, but actually I also started a business with him. That was a very unique situation to be able to do that, and it was one of them things, Richard, that just taught me so much very, very quickly. I mean, I call it a cheat code. I mean, that business went to 8 figures, but I call it a cheat code because ultimately it's had millions and millions of pounds, Lord Sugar's millions behind. And obviously, subsequently, my businesses that I set up since, they've gone 7 figures, right? But there's a lot more demanding based on cash. And that's why I always think of you when I think about, hey, there's money available. Let's take that opportunity or take that risk.
Well, let's go through that. I remember that conversation because I've always been saying that people in business often underestimate the biggest driver on the value of sort of small, medium-sized business is actually not their numbers. It's not their sales, their profits. It's actually the market. So if you've got a sort of fledgling company and you're trying to sell it or trying to promote it, the cycle is what really matters. Yeah. You know, it's more the cycle. So you know your company can be worth triple what it was in a boom year than what it is in a bust year. So it's so much the market. And so what that means is a lot of people focus on their own numbers and growing their own businesses. But if you can raise money in the boom market when money is relatively cheap and someone's offering to invest in your company, I'm normally take the money, particularly if you're a loss-making company in the early stages or still want to expand rapidly. Take the money in the boom years, because when there's a bust, when the share market falls 5-10%, small company valuations halve.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tail on the dog. It goes mental, and people don't realize. And that's a big battle when you're in the sort of startup world, is the fluctuations in the valuation and the ability to raise money. But let's go back.
Let's
go back. So when you're on The Apprentice, now I know it. Sorry to raise it, but you were famously caught out on lying on your CV.
Yeah.
But now that when the chancellor had not yet done that, so it was a bit less fashionable than it may be now. But no, you were caught out on lying on your CV, but won regardless. I mean, how did that happen?
It was weird actually as well that you mentioned the Chancellor, because at the time the Chancellor was Gordon Brown, and he actually mentioned me in the House of Commons at the time. It's like, what is going on with my life here? It's like madness. At that time I was on the front page of every newspaper, obviously after winning and so on and so forth. And the catalyst at the time, I was mortified. You know, when you put it into context and see what the media can do, you're mortified and you're almost being vilified a little bit.
At what point were you caught out? After you'd won or before you won?
No. So what happens in the context of The Apprentice and on the CV? When you apply for The Apprentice, you are just a number. Like, you don't even think that you're going to even get on. And actually, in fact, the context for me was I had a very, very good job working for a corporate organisation. My business unit that I managed turned over 32 million quid. I had 30 people working for me. I was in a very good position, but I was working for somebody else, and I always wanted to challenge myself. I've always been that guy from a very early age that wanted to go again, and I believe and genuinely believe that to learn, you have to step outside your comfort zone. You have to challenge yourself. And I walked in the office one day, and on my desk was a piece of paper with a post-it note on it, and it said fill me out. I thought, what's this? And as I ripped off the post-it note, it was an apprentice application form, and I popped over, you know, like in corporate you have these dividers in between your desks. I kind of popped up, had a look, and I saw Steve Sandy, who's one of my team leaders, giggling. He's just fill it out, and he just put the application on my desk. So I just filled it out, and I didn't think anything of it. And when you fill it out, you have to put a photo of you with it, which I quickly took in the office, and you send your CV. Now, I hadn't done a CV for kind of 6 years because I didn't need to, and I didn't even know what was on it. I just went, oh, that'll do. That was in a Word document. I couldn't remember what was on it. This is the truth. So I send it in. You don't think anything of it. Next thing, 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the producers or whatever saying, oh, would like you to see for an interview. And then that process started. So 7 interviews later, I get on the show. I get a phone call. I'm actually in Kenya on a safari. Do you remember the old BlackBerry with the rollerballs? I had one of them, and it rang. I'm thinking, this is weird. I'm looking at buffalo here, and I'm on a safari. And it was the executive producer saying, hey, you're on the show. You've beat 20,000 candidates to get in. And I was like, oh, wow, this is unbelievable. And obviously, the whole CV piece, I have totally forgotten. Like, I didn't even know what my application said. I can't remember. When we get to the interview stage, that's when Boardroom called me out on my CV. He says, hey, it says that you was at university here and you completed university, and I hadn't. I'd actually dropped out after 4 months, and that was what they picked up on, and that's what the sensation
But you are describing that as sort of a slip of the pen. With that actually saying I got a degree where I haven't got a degree is quite one or the other, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I didn't say that I got a degree. On my CV, it actually said that I dropped out after 4 months, but he said to me in the interview stage, it says here that you got a degree, and I was like, well, is that what it says?
Oh, so you just let it run. You
right,
let it run.
right.
So it was sort of by omission that you kind of...
Yeah, and then it blew
wasn't
up.
actually on your CV, it was more in the interview.
Correct. It's exactly what it was.
Yes.
So I hold Boardroom, I actually know Boardroom pretty well. I hold Boardroom to account on that, to be fair. But it really gave me a catalyst to say, okay, what have I done over the last 11, 12 weeks in this process? Obviously, I got into the final. And I said to Sir Alan or Lord Sugar at the time, look, I've been the best candidate. I've never been taken into the Boardroom, in the final 3 of the Boardroom, ever. I think that's a record even now after 20 series. And the reason for that is because I work hard, I get the job done, I'm brilliant, I won more tasks than anyone else. Regardless of what's gone before on your CV, you're hiring on potential, you're hiring for now. And he took that and he said yes, and that's why I got hired. And I actually made that a business. My first business that I started was based on not hiring on a CV. It was based on hiring on you, personality, behaviour and competency.
So you found a kind of a gap in the market, sort of more or less getting jobs for people who don't have qualifications.
It's not just about qualifications, Richard. It's about you can be a graduate or a non-graduate. But the reality of the situation is if you're hiring just based on education, you're hiring incorrectly. When you're hiring based on personality, the behaviour, the competency of somebody, you're hiring on potential, you're hiring on the outcome that you want. Most employers, as an example, will say, I want a really good salesperson, okay? So then they look at their history, and they might have been a really good salesperson in the past. Then something's happened to them, they become a bad salesperson, then they hire them based on the past. And then what they do is they end up hiring a bad salesperson, right? Because they're not that same person they were before. Whereas when you start hiring on competencies and behaviours and you understand that, hey, this is the person that is today and what they can bring to me, that's when you start hiring outcomes. And what happens with organisations, even today, as I'm talking to you, thousands and thousands and thousands of employers across the world still have a default button to say, send me your CV. Why? I don't understand it. And actually what we need to be asking, the question is, who are you? Let's get to know you. Let's get to know who you are, what your values are, what your culture is, what your behaviours are, because that's going to be the employee that you need.
Okay, but I might pick you up on that because, I was a young director of an investment bank when I was 28. And I had to do a lot of interviews because I was pretty sharp on my economics. I used to help out the whole investment bank on grilling people on their economics. And it's pretty hard. And even in business now, I've had 100 businesses or something. It's very hard to assess someone in even a 1 hour sitting down with them, a half-hour interview. And if you're doing 20 people for one position, sitting down with them for half an hour interview, trying to really know what they're like. And you don't really know what someone is like until they've been doing the job. But so what I'm talking about is the interview process itself is very hard to find out. So how do you judge someone if it's not by their qualifications? Yeah,
exactly that. So, you said it yourself, actually. You answered your own question because you said, just judging somebody based on a CV or a short half an hour interview is very, very tough. You can't assess somebody's behaviours and competencies during that time. What you can do, though, if you look at the Apprentice, as we was talking about, which gave me the idea in the first place, it is a process over a period of time that really shows your behaviour, your competence, how you actually are as an individual, as a person. So
you need to trial them then.
Right, but you put them through a day's assessment. So you put them from an assessment centre or an assessment. What we've done at Phoenix 51, which is my tech business, for example, which is a lovely segue, is we've digitalised that assessment process. So we look at behaviours and competencies, and we have the traditional interview at the front end to get them to a point of assessment, and then we put them through the business style tasks, exactly what they'd be doing in that role. So, for example, if it's a salesperson, we get them on the phone. We start talking to them. We get them outreaching. We get them talking an individual and understand have they got the ability to do that. And once the employer start to see that, they can make a better considered decision with data. We live in a world, Richard, as you well know, of AI and data, and I find it crazy that people still go back to the default button, which is send me your CV, which is a 2-page piece of paper that AI can write in 5 seconds.
But what do you have, what is the initial process then? It's 100 people apply, 100 graduates applying for each job. So you have to start with CV, surely.
Well, actually, flip it. So if you're a graduate, you're one of 100 people applying for one job. How do you stand out from the crowd? Let's use video. Phoenix 51 give you an opportunity to showcase yourself on video. So you've got a 4-minute video to say, hey, I'm going to talk to you about me, who I am, what my values are, what my culture is, what I really want in my next career opportunity. And then actually wrap a scoring system around that on that video platform. And all of a sudden, you've now got some real strong data to find out, hey, is Richard right for me? Is Matt right for me? Is Lee right for me? Is Fiona right for me? And then that's how you move them to the next stage. And once they're into the next stage, then you have that one-to-one interview or a group interview, and then they move into the assessment process, all done through, again, I'm not plugging Phoenix 51, but that's what we do. That is essentially what we do.
Slowly. What's the company called?
Phoenix 51.
Right.
So we are a recruitment technology assessment platform, which it does that 4-stage process, which is exactly what I just explained. So when you're looking at 100 to 1 from a graduate perspective, they're thinking, how do I stand out? Well, actually, put your best foot forward via a video, by talking, understanding who you are, what you do, and then that's going to give the employer the data that they need to move you to the next stage or not.
And what tips would you have, since there's a lot of graduates, people looking for jobs watching this, what tips would you have for people looking for jobs?
Be different, be you. Be yourself.
Stand out somehow.
Stand out.
USP
different.
in your personality.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, research. I've been in recruitment for 25 years, and the biggest problem is people just apply by pressing buttons. They go onto Indeed, they go onto all these big job boards or whatever it is, these advertising boards, LinkedIn, whatever, and they just apply. And then they send a CV. It's really easy. Okay, you can apply for a job in like 5 seconds, but if you're getting a job easily, it's probably not the right opportunity for you, and you're probably not the right attitude or behaviour for that organisation. So it's going to end in one way, where you're going to end up parting company. What we want to do is we want to create something that's more difficult.
So your takeaway is to apply for less jobs, but to put more effort into each application.
100%, because the people that put the effort in, the people that are authentic, the individuals that really want to move forward, they're the ones that do well. And can I give you an example? We placed a guy called James through the exact process that we talked about. He was a bricklayer, and he would never have got a job in this organisation through his CV. Now, this organisation is the largest industrial AI company on the planet. It's doing about $3 trillion. Yeah. And he got the job as a BDR. He's had 3 promotions in 18 months, and he's now working directly for the Chief Revenue Officer. He's closing £20 million enterprise deals.
That's a fantastic story.
And we've got thousands of them, Richard. Sorry to interrupt. We've got thousands of them. And that's the thing why I get so passionate, is because it's not a nice to have, in my opinion. This is a must. This is how organisations should be recruiting their people.
And what about your own story? What did you do as a kid and as a teenager, and how did you end up where you are? What was your journey?
Yeah. I wish I could. Well, I don't wish. You'll probably accept me. I used to sell lemonade from the stands or whatever when I was 10. I didn't, actually. My first, I suppose, foray into understanding money, because we didn't have money, right? We never had money. My dad's a milkman, my mum's a doctor receptionist. Now, we didn't have a bad childhood, but I was the kid with high-tech trainers when everyone else had Reebok and Nike. I was the kid with the rusty BMX second-hand before Vinted and, Facebook Marketplace came out. It was fashionable to buy second-hand stuff. That was me. So we didn't have money. It didn't come from money. It didn't come from education. And so for me, it was more about hustle to begin with, I suppose. I didn't really foray into money until I bought my first house. So I bought my first house when I was 18. So I had to rent when I was 17, and that gave me, why am I renting a house, just giving somebody else money when I could use this as an investment? That was my mindset at the time. Now, there's a lot of different things gone on since then. I mean, I was a long time ago, like 30 years. So I went and knocked on my bank manager's door and said, hey, can I get a mortgage? And he laughed at me. He's like, no, you need to do certain things. I said, right, give me the plan. Tell me what I need to do. And then as soon as I had that plan, I could go and execute. And that's how I am even today. Decide and take action. So you make a decision and then you take action on that decision. You move fast. So within 6-7 months of me just grinding, getting 2 jobs, making sure that I got all the pay slips that I needed, the bank statements that I needed to prove, went back to my bank manager and said, can I have a mortgage? He said, yeah. And I bought my first house at 18. And that was probably the first time that I was like, oh, okay, mate, maybe I could be good at this business type thing. I'm not quite sure because I didn't really know what it was. I was working at the time at Harrow School, which is one of the most prestigious schools in the UK. And I was in catering, 13 grand a year, working 12, 13 hours a day as a trainee. And I met a guy that I knew from school. His name was Pete. He had this big watch on and this lovely suit. I was like, what are you doing? He went, oh, I'm in recruitment. And I said, what's that? And he explained that recruitment is like sales and you get paid commission. And Richard, I didn't know what commission was at the time. I was like, okay, but I had a house and I knew that actually if I worked more long hours, I get paid for that. I get more money. And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay, I'm in. So I literally, within 2 weeks, I got a job in recruitment, and I've been in recruitment ever since, 25 years.
So you sort of got influenced by your mate, because he was doing well, and then you got influenced by the bank manager, to get more income, I suppose. And you were influenced by your CV. Were you influenced by your dad, the milkman?
Yeah, probably in a reverse situation. Like, I don't be like that, to be fair. And I mean that with the greatest respect to my dad. But it's interesting. I speak to so many founders and business owners and leaders like yourself, and I coach them, as I said earlier. And the one thing is that they take advice from people that have never been there or done it before. So, as an example, like my dad would give me advice. Like, he's a milkman, right? By trade, 42 years. And he'd give me advice on doing business in America. I'm like, Dad, you've never been to America. Yeah, but the dollar. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I call these people the village, right? These are the village people that keep talking and nattering, and there's a lot of noise. It's very comfort in there, but they are holding you back. They are the people, and he's my dad, right? So I mean it with respect, but sometimes you've got to cut out the noise and surround yourself with people like you, like business owners, people that have been there and done it, because that's the difference. Jim Rohn said it famously, right? You're the average of the 5 people around you. So if you sit in a room with milkmen, you become the average of the milkman, or whatever it is. And actually what we want, and I'm not having a go at the milk people, right? The milkman, the milkwoman. What I'm saying is, if you've got an ambition to be a 6-figure business, a 7-figure business, you're not going to learn them skills being around people like my dad.
I mean, not to mention class, which is, you can't even talk about class, but, I'm a working class kid, you're a working class kid. Do working class people sort of have a suspicion of progression into the business world?
Perhaps. I mean, I've worked for a lot of people, like you just said it yourself about you. I've worked and know a lot of people that have progressed amazingly from that background. Maybe it's something that spurs them on. Maybe it spurred you on. I mean, again, from your businesses been mega successful in business. Where did that come from for you? Like, what was that spurring on from your perspective?
Well, for me, I didn't, because of my back, because I went through the care system, I didn't really have much choice. It was a bit like you said, but I took a more traditional route where I saw education as being the safest route for me to get out of, poverty, really.
Yeah.
And I got an opportunity to go to university. I had to study at night for the first few years and work during the day, which was the hardest I've ever worked. But then eventually I got a scholarship to go full time. But education was my saviour. And I still think for a lot of young people, I mean, the world is changing so rapidly now with AI, etc. But for a lot of young people, education's the safest. I mean, it is getting easier to start businesses. That's so maybe they compete now.
Yeah,
but probably getting an ineffective degree is probably not the best idea anymore. and starting a lousy business is still a bad idea. But there's a lot of business opportunities arising from AI and keeping your eyes open. But for me, it was education. Education was my savior. I know it's old-fashioned to say that, but it was. But I did a sort of a STEM, economics and maths. So, it did give me skills to go into a career.
But I think one of the things that I took out of that conversation there is that it's the hardest you've ever worked. Now, that to me shows your behaviour. That to me shows your attitude. And that's the key thing when we're looking at wrapping data around that personality. So we're just using it as an example. Not necessarily your grade or not necessarily the education that you did, but how you did it. That's very important because it shows that if you can go and put absolutely everything, work nights, do the things that you need to do to get to an end result, that's the bit that's actually really interesting for an employer, i.e. somebody that, hey, I'm going to get a really good person here that's going to put absolutely everything in and get the outcome that they need. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can wrap that data around. I also think as well, you mentioned about AI. We could all probably just jump on, I don't know, Claude or whatever the new one is nowadays yes. and set a business up. But I still think that human connectivity, I mean, we have AI in our platform in Phoenix 51, of course. But that human connectivity, doing this, I think COVID really taught us as a human entity that even if you class yourself as somebody that's within themselves or kind of wants to be on their own, humans still need other people. We still need people around us. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, yeah, I do 100% agree. And working from home, I learned so much. Even though I might have been stronger on my economics than the other people I was working with, I learned so much about, and sometimes you learn just from explaining something you're doing. What are you doing?
Yeah, for sure.
But I learned so much from other people, and just as you say, work ethic, or just an approach, or just or I admire so many people I've worked with, just their attitude and their attitude to life. And I really think that businesses suffer. My business, I want people having a coffee together,
100%.
and even at a sort of executive level, I have this saying that you learn more in the bar than the boardroom. I mean, I know we're in the boardroom right now. There's our test set, but you learn more in the bar than the boardroom, and I use that flippantly because you learn more from a sort of casual conversation. Sometimes I'd be at a board meeting with very stifled with minutes and a chairperson, and walk out, and then I'd have a beer or whatever, a glass of wine, whatever, with the CEO, and I'd find out more like, how's this business really going? You worried about that, or you just watch their body language if they don't want to tell you. But you learn so much more about a person. And even when we're talking about interviewing people, often you'd learn more about just chatting about the cricket or the flower show, or cars, anything.
Let's not talk about the cricket, Richard. I tell you what, let's not talk about the Ashes for sure.
But
I do agree.
It wouldn't be the topic. It'd just be, what do you think about life?
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's the outcome that we want. Do you want to build a business which is structured, not fun, that just talks about the numbers, just talks about the revenue, and you are consistently moving staff on because they don't fit? And it's not a judgment. It's okay. Like, people say to me, I want to build a £5 million business. Are you sure? Because I can help you do that. I can solutionise that with you. We can put a plan together and we can work doing that. But do you really want to do that? Because you're not going to see your family, and you're going to have 14-hour days, and you have to build a system. You have to scale the business up. You're going to have to hire people. Do you want to manage all these people? Or do you want a nice business that's, earning you 500 grand a year, and actually you take his kids to school, and because this is, again, the most powerful question I ask is, what do you want? And it's amazing. It's such a simple question, but most people, Richard, don't know. They don't know what they want, and that's one of the reasons why I get such success and joy out of being able to give back. So I've made some bad mistakes. We all have in business, or I've made decisions that I thought were going to be really good, and then they've turned out really bad, or haven't. We've lost money or whatever it is. I want to be able to showcase that to other entrepreneurs, to other founders and leaders. Say, hey, you don't need to make that mistake because I've already made it, and actually this is what I did. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but don't you find people aren't very receptive to hearing about your mistakes?
I think it's also not just in business, but in people as well. Like you said, they want to experience their own their own mistakes. They want their own kind of war stories, They want their own kind of scars. So it's not like it. I'm not saying like scars as in like they're hurting themselves, but they almost need to feel the pain for them to be able to realise that actually they can do it.
Like they've earned it.
Well, they've earned it. Like it's like a stripe on their shoulder. Do you know what I mean? It's, and it is weird. Like even if you're taking out a business context and you're taking about through addiction as an example, people need to, you hear it a lot, don't you? People need to hit rock bottom before they can come back up. It's because even though people are saying, hey, you don't need to hit rock bottom because I've been there and you need to do this, they still say, yeah, but I'm just going to experience it for myself. Maybe it's a human trait. I'm not sure. But
what are common mistakes you see when coaching people?
Sometimes it's very simple. Business owners and founders don't want to know the simple because they want to know the magic. Sometimes the magic is literally sales. Most of the time, it is a sales issue. Most of the time, and my one of my other coaches I had, and one of my chairmen, Emma, she used to say, "Pipeline covers all sins." So you can have a business that might not be performing in certain areas, but if you've got a strong pipeline of new clients or sales coming in, it kind of covers a lot of the stuff. And I say this quite a lot to my coaching clients and the people that I work with is. And this is not a judgment, this is just a fact. If you don't generate revenue, you haven't got a business, you've got a hobby. And that's okay if you want a hobby. Now, how many of you want a hobby? No one. They all want a business. So let's start tackling the problem first. Sales. How do I get new clients coming into the business? How do I generate new revenue? And it's one of the things that you said before when we came on camera, you said about, my skill was sales from the Apprentice back in the day. I don't generally think that's a skill, though probably is.
It is.
But the reality is, if you don't have that as a business owner, you have to either train and develop it on yourself, invest in yourself, or bring that expertise in. Because if you don't have revenue in your business, you don't have a business.
What would be your takeaway sort of technique for sales?
Now, my biggest takeaway or tip, if you like, would be if you've built something that actually helps people, whether it's a widget, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, you have a duty of care to the market to tell them that is who you are and what you do. So it's a reframing. It isn't about selling. It's about a duty of care to explain and tell you that I can help you. Like I can help you. If you're a person that is brilliant in business but have let themselves go a little bit in their mind or let themselves go in a little bit in their body or something like that, then I can help you by coming to a 4-day immersive elite retreat, which is one of my other businesses that I've now set up. If you're in tip-top shape physically but you just don't know how to move your business from 100 grand to $1 million, I can help you on Elite Retreat because that's exactly what we do. So if I didn't tell you that, but I knew I could help you, I'm doing you a bit of a disservice, aren't I? So that's how I reframe it from a sales. I'm not selling to you. What I'm actually doing is saying to you, hey, I think I've got something that can help you. You want to be here, and I've got that thing that will help you get there. Let's have a conversation. The reality is, most people, not all, but most people think of sales as pushy salespeople. You've got to do the deal. You've got to make this happen. Got to close. Oh my God, the close. All of that is a misconception. What sales is about for me is having a conversation with somebody who kind of needs and wants what you have. Okay, and then the exchange, which is the money bit that you was talking about, is just an exchange of goods like we would have done 150 years, 200 years ago, of an exchange. Okay, I've got something that you need and you want it and I've got it, so let's do that exchange.
Well, there's this thing in economics where, a trade can benefit both sides. So it's not a zero-sum game. We can both win. If I'm selling you something for £100, which costs me £50 to make, that's great for me because I'm making £50 margin. But on the other hand, if it creates value for you of £200, then we both win.
100%.
So I try to tell myself that when I'm doing sales, that yes, I'm making a profit out of this, I'm making a margin out of this, but it's fine because they're making something as well. It's making their life easier or they're making a profit somehow.
And the key word there for me that you used was value. So it's not about price, it's not about cost, not what it's cost you, it's what it costs you not to go ahead. It's not what about the price, it's about the investment. And that's the way I see it. The value piece is really, hey, what is it you want? What is the outcome that you want? I want to be like this. Okay, so when I help you be like that, what's that value to you? Well, it's unbelievable. Okay, great. Let's do it.
Do you think businesses are more similar or different?
I think that once you've found the system, and it's not about a computer system, it's about the model, the system that works for you, like a sales system, for example. If you've got a 4-step process that you can put into place that gets leads into the top of the funnel, that engages with them people, that closes deals, and you repeat that and retain them clients, you just do that over and over and over again. That model, that system can work in any type of business. But that business needs to understand what works for them. So, for example, it could be online advertising, or it could be leafleting, or it could be both. It could be doing podcasts. It could be doing networking. It could be both. It could be all. But until you've A/B tested, until you've tried it, until you've figured it out for your business, you won't know what works. What most people do is they put an advert out on, I don't know, Meta, on the Meta platform. Doesn't work for 2 weeks. They change it. That advert needs to run for like 6 months. It needs to understand it to drive people in. Most people need to hear the message at least 8 times before they even register what that is.
What you're saying is really I mean, I kind of think of the first year of business as a research project, where you're gathering data. It's, you were saying earlier that you can't listen to the village, the people around you. And I haven't found experts very useful at all. I learned that early, even in the semiconductor business, which is a very complicated business. You get 2 people saying the exact opposite, and no one really knew the future. So really, there's no substitute for real-life testing, a bit like a laboratory, science laboratory. And then what you're saying is you need to sort of do that sort of A/B testing, or research, or see what works, and then get something that when it does work, then run with it.
Yeah, because absolutely, because the point you made earlier about some of the friends and family, they say, oh, it's a brilliant idea, you should do it, it's amazing, it's great. That's not real research, as you were saying earlier. What you really want is you want a Richard in your life, or a Lee in your life, to go, hey, this ain't going to work, and the reason why is X, Y. And it might sound brutal, but that's what you need. That would be my biggest thing. Anyone that's starting a business, or anybody that is kind of in a leadership role, let's take, go and speak to the people that have been there and done that. And in terms of their, not expertise in terms of that piece, but actually gone through that pain, like you were saying earlier. Some people don't want to hear your pain or the failure story, but the reality is that's what makes you who you are today. Going through, most business owners fail, most. We don't like talking about it because it's the F word, it's the failure word, but we don't like talking about it, do we? We don't like, hey, my business was losing money. We don't like talking about that. We don't like talking about the fact that, hey, I'm some successful business person, but actually my businesses were failing. And that's what makes me even more interesting to other people, is because, well, okay, you started a business, it started to fail. How did you turn it around? That is the nugget that enables them to not make the same mistakes.
I'm always interested in this. When I went on Dragon's Den, suddenly fame, for a period of time, because Dragon's Den was 5 million people watching it every week when I was on it. So everywhere you went, someone would recognise you, and it's kind of died off. And I was always in 2 minds about whether I liked that or not. It sort of felt like cheap wins in a way, like people would admire you for something. You go on TV, suddenly someone thinks you're good at business, where a week ago they didn't. So I'd always feel a bit of imposter syndrome. But anyway, it was life-changing, and in a lot of very good ways, because I met prime ministers, I met sports stars, meet people like you, interesting people, so it really broadened the number of people, which is the biggest thing. And it's also a little bit of a calling card. You say I was on Dragon's Den, and people sort of remember you or know a little bit about you already. I mean, how did you find your life from one day, one month to the next after being on The Apprentice?
Very similar. I mean, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I still think I should be on TV right now. I know. I still think I've got something to offer. I absolutely loved it. And I think certainly for the first couple of years, I was recognised everywhere. I remember going to Ascot literally about 3 weeks after I won, going to the races, just normal, with my girlfriend at the time and our friends. And literally, I couldn't move. It was like being David Beckham. I loved it. People coming up, photographs. It was unreal. I was like, what is happening? I remember going to a meeting in Canary Wharf with Lord Sugar, and we rocked up in the roller, and the doors open, and people, that's what I'm talking about. Like, because it was a phrase that I had on the show. Like, that's what I'm talking about. And people would be shouting at these bankers, investment banks, like, that's what I'm talking. Go on, Lee. And I'm like, oh my god, like. So I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I do agree with you on the calling card. What I found, though, was My job, when we started Amscreen, my job was business development director. So you won't be, based on all the conversation we've had today is about sales. I had to outreach. So I think I had something like 70 meetings in the first 12 weeks. I just literally was, and it was great for a call. Hey, Lee McQueen, oh, you just run the Apprentice.
Right,
They'd give me a meeting.
right.
But what the adverse effect with that, Richard, was that they'd really negotiate hard with me because they were like, oh, we're going to beat the Apprentice, we'll win at the negotiation. So that was quite tough. And I did want to try and dampen that down a little bit. Like I wanted to just be me for the business that I am, not just because I'm an apprentice.
What advice would you have for anyone in a nutshell starting a business?
I think it's get your plan road tested. Don't just speak to your family and your friends. Speak to people that are going to give you the truth. And sometimes you won't like that truth, but that truth will be the savior of how you approach your business. Get coaching. Generally, I think, investing in you, investing in yourself, that will be the number one thing. You're about to invest in your entire life through your family, your house, everything that you do, regardless if you've got family yet. If you're going to build a business, that's going to end up being an investment in your family. Invest in you right now.
I think we've had a very interesting conversation. You've got a fascinating story. So we both sort of had our TV experiences, but thank you for coming on today, and lots of takeaways from what we've discussed.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. I appreciate it for having me. I look forward to coming back on.
Cheers.